What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Fun with Friends podcast. I'm your host, Allie. I hope everyone is doing well, and safe, and healthy. Joining me on today's episode are Tiara and Kaiy of Basic Wineaux. Tiara is also the founder of Wine Diva, and Kaiy is the founder of The Som Mom. I'd like to thank both of you so much for joining me today, and I am so very excited to chat a little bit about wine with you. So a little bit of a background on how I met Tiara and Kaiy. I actually attended one of their virtual wine tasting events, and it was the first virtual wine tasting event that I had ever gone to. I think I've been to a few in person, but have never done a virtual one. And we were tasting a variety of rosés, I believe, and pairing them with barbecue.
Sounds about right.
It was like, I think that was the event. I found out about that event because Sarah and we are in a couple of like women entrepreneur groups, like support groups, and which are absolutely wonderful. And you had posted about wine, and you know, I got to jump in on a wine conversation when I can. And then during that virtual event, I met Kaiy, and it was a really positive experience. I was a little worried about it being like a virtual wine tasting. I wasn't quite sure how that was going to work, but it was really great. The group was super fun. Like everyone that was there was like, it was just a very welcoming kind of vibe. And I think the part I enjoyed the most was probably seeing everyone's pairings that they had made at home. Because I think you guys had barbecue for your tasting, but then other people had put together kind of like cheese and meat trays, and you know, I was very jealous of all the food. It looked amazing.
Yeah, I remember during that you were all like, I can't get over the fact that like everybody else came like super prepared and like all of this stuff, but I'm like, honestly, just go through your pantry.
Yeah.
But I also have kids at home and a family, and so it's different. I feel like when you're single or like it's just adults, you guys don't always have food in your house.
Nope, I do not.
I was saying that is the truth. I was like, I think I have like I don't know, peanuts in my pantry. Like, was that done through Basic Wineaux or was that done through Wine Divas?
Basic Wineaux.
It was a really fun event. I haven't done another one yet, but I'm waiting to. Eventually, I will do another event because it was really fun, and like I said, it was, you know, it was like hanging out with just like a bunch of friends, drinking wine together and chatting. So and also educational. Like I learned a lot about wine and a lot of like pairings that I wouldn't have thought. Like I would never have thought to pair like rosé with barbecue ever. So it was a really cool event. Let's talk a little bit more about Basic Wineaux. Tiara, can you tell us a little bit about what Basic Wineaux is?
So Basic Wineaux is basically a group of wine lovers, and Kaiy and I rep for a winery, and we just love to share wine and talk about wine, educate about wine without being snobby and making wine more approachable because it's wine. Like, why not have a good time? And so, yeah, we like to drink, hang out with friends, and make some money.
Did you guys meet? Like, were you friends before you got involved with Basic Wineaux, or was that kind of how you met each other, or how'd you all become wine buddies?
I'm actually kind of excited about this question because repping for the same winery, I had seen some of T's videos, and like, cause she goes live all the time. I have kids. So going live is like not a thing in our house unless you want to see my kids hanging from chandeliers. But I was like, oh my God, this person is like, how is she happy all the time? Like, I don't understand. And at the time she actually lived in Virginia. She didn't live in LA. And because that's where I'm at, LA, California. And so all of a sudden, I feel like I saw one of her videos. I was talking to one of my other friends who does wine too. And I was like, dude, this girl, she like always is like happy. Like, who does that? Like, who is like that? And so I was like, I can't stand it. And then like not even 2 days after that conversation, she lived in downtown LA. And I was like, what? She's like encroaching on our territory. Like, what is this? Like, I don't want another rep here. And like, she thinks she's so cool because, you know, she knows how to like go live and all of these things. And this was like before I would even go live or any of that stuff. So I figured there were two ways of handling the situation. I could either be a complete bitch and like not talk to her, like kind of like just be mean and do my own thing, or I could like kill her with kindness and listen to like what my mom taught me and be a nice person, and maybe I could tolerate her. And then we invited her over, not to like, you know, kill her or anything like that, just to hang out and have a glass of wine. And I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to deal with this. She came over and I like fell in love with her. And I feel like from that moment, T is so much fun and like outgoing and all of those things. There was a lot of things that I wish I could be like when I go live, but that's just not me. So I think it kind of made me a little like jealous of her. Mm-hmm. And so when she came and we started talking about wine and really connecting, I was like, I love this person. Like we should just hang out all the time. And we started hanging out. And that's kind of how Basic Wineaux started, is that we both had this like love for wine, but we felt like there are a lot of people who didn't get into wine because it was intimidating or a little highbrow, or like things that really we didn't feel because we were a part of the wine world, but people outside of the wine world felt, and it's like, how do we make this more approachable? And so as we started talking, Basic Wineaux basically came to be because we were two people in the wine world who loved the same thing, and we wanted to share it with other people. And we felt like if we, like her, like outgoing extrovert personality came together with my resting bitch face and like my knowledge of wine, we figured that it would be a good like partnership, you know, and that's how it came to be. And I think that we have incredible people who work with us now, and T and I kind of take the lead on that. It's incredible. I love where we're at, and I love who I'm doing it with.
Oh, I love that. I love that wine brought you together and you created this whole kind of like business around it. And that's an awesome story. I can definitely relate to the being a little scared of wine, I guess. I don't think I had my first like full, I guess, like wine experience until I was well into my 20s, like maybe like my mid 20s. And it was because I moved from the Midwest to Washington State, where wine is, you know, huge. That was my first experience, and it was terrifying. I was like, I don't know anything about wine. I'm going to these wineries, doing a tasting. I'm like, I don't know what am I supposed to do during a tasting? Like, felt very kind of like uncomfortable because I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Hi, I'm Cassie.
I'm Tiffany, and we're the hosts of Happy Hour Gets Weird. On our podcast, we talk all things weird,
like UFOs,
Bigfoot,
astrology,
ghosts,
and even true crime.
And every episode, we create a fabulous new cocktail.
So fabulous. If you're looking for a little weirdness, please search Happy Hour Gets Weird on your favorite podcast platform.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
So that was a little bit about Basic Wineaux and how you guys got to know each other. So let's learn a little bit more about you, because I know both of you have like amazing backgrounds. You're both involved in some awesome stuff with business, with wine, with kind of like helping other entrepreneurs, which is amazing. So I'll start with Tiara. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, a little bit about your background.
Tiara, most of my friends call me T. I guess I could do how I intro all of my videos. Like, most people know me as the Wine Diva. And I think that's what Kay's talking about earlier, of like just all the extra. So I am an actor, wine consultant, and then a life and business coach. And how I got into the world of wine, I mean, to be wholly honest, I think like I didn't even like wine when I was like younger. I just like to get drunk. And so like that's kind of how it happened. But I got introduced by different people, and like I had the opportunity to try different things and realized that, actually this shit kind of tastes good. And there are different kinds, there's different styles. And the more I wanted to like try more wine, the more I wanted to learn about it, it kind of was like, you know what, this might be a really cool career. And, I as an actor, starving artist kind of life, I needed something to like help support. So I thought it would be a really cool idea to just like jump into the wine world without knowing anything about it and like try to make money. So that's kind of how it happened.
Like you mentioned, you also have another brand, or you are the founder of Wine Divas. How did that kind of grow out of Basic Wineaux as kind of your own side hustle, I guess, if you want, focused on wine, or did that kind of exist before and it's just kind of all rolling together in your own wine brand?
So yeah, Wine Diva kind of just came as like my own personal brand, like who I am and like out in the world, I guess. It started with like Kaiy was saying earlier, I go live a lot, and I used to do these like live video challenges to help grow my wine business. So I became a wine consultant. I've been a wine consultant for over 5 years now. And I was trying to grow utilizing social media, and I learned about live video and how live video can like help connect with, different clients and like show a little bit of like know, like, and trust. And I'm like, bitch, I'm an actor. Of course I can get on the camera and like talk about whatever. So from there, like I was doing these live videos and I was meeting all these really cool people just like in networking groups and all that. And I didn't really have a brand for myself. I just like, hey, I'm Tiara, I like wine or whatever when I started my videos. And someone just straight up said, Tiara, you know what? You're like a wine diva, because like sing in your videos, you do this, and you're bubbly, and I was like, that's it, boom, that's my brand, that's who I am, and I changed everything to Wine Diva, and so that's kind of where Wine Diva came from. So essentially it's me coaching, it's me acting, it's me selling wine, it's all of that together, and then Basic Wineaux is Kaiy and I together.
So Kaiy, same questions to you. Who you are, what you do, and your background with wine. And then also, if you could share a little bit about your brand, the Som Mom, and kind of what it's all about.
So basically, I'm Italian, so I grew up with a glass of wine in my hand. That was something that was really important to our family. It's about community. It's about bringing people together. That's why we have like Sunday dinners and wine. So I feel like I've always drank wine. Now, was I into it? I was into the fact that it got me drunk, like there were no other things that I was really like super excited for. But I did, growing up, my dad was the head chef at the Ritz-Carlton, and food was always like a huge part of our family too. So I feel like wine and food always, it's like it goes hand in hand, and so it works really, really well together. That's kind of like how I kind of got started in the wine world. It was something that like was already ingrained into like how I grew up. It was a part of my culture and all of those things. But I really started to get like heavy into wine when I started repping for this winery. I found out that I could make a little extra money talking about wine and getting drunk with people. And I was like, sign me up, I'll totally do it. And when I started doing it, it was right after I had my kids. So I am a mom of two wonderful kids. I have a almost 1-year-old, and then I have a 4-year-old terrorist, also known as toddlers. But that's something that keeps me drinking, which is great. But it also, being able to work from home allows me the ability to do like wine and family at the same time. And what's a better job than like hanging out and drinking with friends that also keeps you sane? It's like a little bit of therapy and like fun and all of that like good stuff. So that's kind of like how it kind of evolved into this. And the funny thing about my brand was I think I was live with T one day, and she just called me the Som Mom. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a Som. Like I have like the education, and I'm a mom. That sounds cool, but I like wasn't ready to own it yet. And then like as I started to build my brand, I was like, you know what? T taught me how to have the confidence to own who you are. And so I was like, I am the Som Mom. So that was something that I love the name, and it fits who I am. But I also have a business where we make charcuterie. So somebody called me a charcuterist the other day. So wine and charcuterie just kind of like goes together. And that is kind of what the Som Mom is about. It's about building cheese boards and drinking wine in your sweats at home while you make money. And it's something that I truly enjoy doing. And I love that I get to do it with other people. And that is me.
Who doesn't want to like sit around, drink wine, hang out with friends, and eat cheese?
Right?
Those are some of my favorite things to do anyways. So I'm gonna have to look into this wine gig because it's sounding pretty good. And so for people who might not be familiar, can you kind of explain what a Som is and kind of what the like educational background is to become a sommelier?
So to become a sommelier, technically, let's kind of break it down. To be a sommelier, you are just a wine steward. You are somebody usually in a restaurant that shares wine with guests. Make sure that they are picking the right wines. You're a storyteller in essence. You're telling them about the wine and you're connecting it to the winery and the vineyard and all of those things. So pretty much anybody who's a wine steward at Trader Joe's or at the supermarket or any of those things is technically a sommelier. Now, there is a course and there is like a program that you go through the Court of Master Soms. And that's usually what people are talking about when they talk about a sommelier. And there's 4 different levels that you can achieve. And a master som basically is somebody who, I like to call them the doctors of wine. And this is just one program. There are multiple programs. You can totally do the Master of Wine program instead. But it doesn't have that som title, which isn't as fancy. But the only difference between the two is sommeliers can pour wine without spilling on the table. And masters of wine, they're not really worried about that, but they do have the same amount of education. So you go through these different courses, and as you advance each course, you start to learn a little bit more about wine. And pretty much anybody can start and do it. You go to the Court of Master Soms online. I know we're in COVID times, so things are a little weird. The classes are in person for the Court of Master Soms. You can't do them online right now, but who knows how things will change. And you go through a course, and then once you hit a certified som, which is level 2, then you can technically call yourself a sommelier. But to be completely honest, you can call yourself a sommelier if you work at Trader Joe's in the wine section. So
okay.
It's not like what everybody wants to hear, but like at the end of the day, if you love wine, there's definitely steps to do in order to get there. My first step to everybody is start drinking it. Tons of wine, so you learn. So when you go in to do those classes, you feel comfortable, you feel prepared. When they call you out and ask you to describe a wine, you don't feel uncomfortable doing it. Because there is a lot of that as you're going through and learning about wine and all that fun stuff.
You guys also just recently it was a several-day camp, wasn't it? Like a wine camp. Could you tell us a little bit about what was involved with that and how that went?
So Wine Camp is an annual convention for the winery that we rep for, and basically it is a way to get to know other consultants. Typically we do it in person. This year was the first year that we've done it virtually since COVID and everything. So I was over at Kayy's house and, we drank wine together. But typically, I think the last couple of years we did like Palm Springs and Vegas, but it's just a cool way to get to know like the vice presidents, the CEOs, our winemaker, and really convene together, learn how we can grow our businesses and get tips and tricks from like top leaders and drink a fuck ton of wine.
Bonus for sure.
Most definitely.
Oh, wonderful.
If you're like me and you're just getting started with podcasting, it can be scary and overwhelming. That's why Anchor is such a great choice. It's one of the easiest ways to make a podcast, and best of all, it's free. It also has great creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Another great feature of Anchor is that they'll distribute your podcast for you. Your listeners will be able to access your podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. You can also make money from your podcast using Anchor, and that's with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place, and it's easy to use. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
I also want to touch on a little bit your travel adventures or wine tasting adventures that you've had. Have either of you been able to go on any kind of international trips and do wine tasting? And if so, what's been the best wine tasting trip that you've been on?
Yay. So when it comes to wine, there's been a lot of travel. Being in California, there's Temecula all the time. There's Santa Barbara, the Central Coast, all of that. That's super convenient to us, so we go all the time. But we also go to Napa a lot. Love it. It's awesome. It's a great place to go for wine. I mean, there's tons of places that are known for wine, so I think that that's what people usually tend to be like, oh, this is the best place that I've ever experienced wine. One of the nice thing about the winery that we rep for is every time throughout the year, they give you opportunities to earn trips, essentially. So one of the trips that we went on, and one of my favorite places to actually try wine, was in Prague. So we had a trip to Austria. We went to Prague, and we went to a little winery in Prague. It wasn't like a big, like what I'm used to in like Napa and even in Austria when we would go to different wineries. It was a little like mom and pop winery in the middle of nowhere. And their wine was incredible, but the experience that I got there was even more incredible. And it kind of reminded me that like wine is everywhere. There's wineries all over the place, and finding these little like secret like nooks and crannies is like the best little thing ever. And we actually got some honey while we were there, and we just had it the other day from Prague, and it was so good. Like a lot of wineries have grapes and they have wine and they have all of those things, but you have to remember they're also like farms too. So there's a lot of other things that they have there that you get to try, and honey and jams are usually like something that most places have. And it was nice to be able to bring that back because, you know, the wine that came back was gone very quickly, but the honey sat. We got a few bottles of like little jars of honey. So Prague was probably the most memorable for me, but one of my favorite places to go is Frog's Leap in Napa, and I absolutely love it. It doesn't get enough respect. I could probably go on for years about this. They have the best wine I've ever tried. I'm totally a millennial because it's a rosé, and I'm like, their 2018 rosé was like insane. Hands down, one of my favorite wines.
I love rosé.
I know how you feel about rosé too. So yeah, I'm totally a millennial when it comes to rosé. Like, give me rosé all day. I don't care.
Exactly.
I will totally be all of those things. But yeah, that was probably my favorite experience is Prague, and then Frog's Leap was another experience that I absolutely loved.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought. I guess when I think about wine, which mind you, my wine knowledge is pretty limited. But Prague definitely wouldn't be somewhere that would like pop into my mind as a place to get like good wine. You always think of like Italy or Spain or you know, but not Prague. So that's interesting.
They have tons of late harvest wine. So like people who are sweeter wine drinkers, it's like the best place to go for like Rieslings and Gewürztraminer that have a little bit of residual sugar on them. I'm not a huge sweet wine drinker, but I totally could appreciate everything that they had there to offer. They had some other drier wines, but the Riesling and the Gewürztraminer was like off the charts.
Yeah, I like a good, crisp, sweet Riesling. So, oof. Now I just want to go buy wine.
So for me, like my wine tasting trip, so like I grew up in Virginia, and oddly enough, Virginia has a shit ton of wineries. I think like even in the Northern Virginia area, I think it's like 250 wineries. I remember when we found out that we were moving to LA, I was like telling my boyfriend, I was like, we have to go to all these wineries. We're gonna go. Like that was my thing was to just like go to a different winery at least once a week, and like go wine tasting to like 4 or 5 different wineries every week until we moved, which was really cool. And Virginia has kind of like their soil is a little bit different, and it's very like old world kind of style versus like where California is like new world and it's a little bit brighter and fruitier. Virginia kind of has more trying to be a little bit more like French style wine. But before all of that, where I truly learned how to appreciate wine was oddly enough, Italy. I had done a teach English tutoring program right out of college, and I stayed with a bunch of host families. And like Kaiy was saying earlier, where she was talking about like being in an Italian family and wine and food is like a huge part of their culture. It's so a huge part of their culture. So I'm living with these host families, and I didn't know anything about wine at the time. I just knew that it came with lunch and dinner and like it was always served. And so I was just like, well, it's alcohol, I might as well drink it. But then I started to like really appreciate the flavors and understanding that, oh my God, like even it doesn't have to be super expensive to be good wine, especially if you're getting it from a region that is like really believes in wine and makes it like a huge part of their culture. Like it's so freaking good. Like their table wine, their house wine at any restaurant, so freaking amazeballs, and you can get it for like €2. It's kind of crazy. And so that's kind of where I learned to appreciate it. I wasn't doing any like deductive tasting and like calling out notes or anything, but I was just like, this is good and I'm happy. Yay. And I guess my other like memorable trip was Napa. Being in LA, like Kaiy was saying, we're very, very close. It's like, I don't know, an hour flight up to like San Francisco, and then like, you know, a little bit of a drive into Napa. And so as consultants, you know, one thing that I really love about this industry is it is such a big community and such a family vibe to it. Wine as a whole, like, you know, there are some people that can be pretentious about it and whatever, but like for the most part, you know, they're family owned wineries, and people are just trying to make a living and share what they love. And in going to Napa and like even in Virginia and Temecula, a lot of these places offer industry discounts. So they're just like, I appreciate you understanding how good wine is and wanting to like try our wine. And so some places will give us free tasting, some places will give us like half off bottles of wine. And so it's a really awesome experience. In Napa, I think like my boyfriend and I think every place that we went, our tastings were free. And so my boyfriend was like, wait a minute, we don't have to pay like $20 a person to try wine. Oh my gosh. And like people would pour us extra like their port or something, or they'll open a bottle of something that since they know that we're in the industry, you know, that we'll appreciate it. And it might not be something that's normally on their tasting menu. So I loved that. And I think that's like a really awesome part of like traveling and working within wine.
Yeah, that's nice. Getting free tastings, like sign me up. But I can't even imagine what it was like kind of like living in Italy and just like fully immersing yourself into the culture and the wine and the food. Like, oh, that's something I want to kind of like eat, pray, love, or eat, pray, drink my way through and just enjoy, you know, come back maybe a good 100 pounds heavier from all of it. And that's okay. It'll be worth it. Oh, I bet that was such an amazing experience. I'm trying to think of the winery I went to. I've only been to California a few times, but I was there for several months as part of like the wildfire recovery, like a couple of years ago. On a day off, we went to the, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but it's the Domaine Carneros.
That's my favorite winery.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Like it was stunning. And I did the rosé tasting, like the flight, because of course I did. But it was that was a really cool experience. It was cold because of the time of year we were there, but we got to sit, they have like an enclosed kind of like porch area. And so you still got like the beautiful view and everything and the fireplaces, and it was so good. It was so good. But I feel like that's like I've been to smaller kind of like tiny wineries like out in the middle of nowhere in like Eastern Washington. But I felt like this was like my first like big like fancy winery, and I was like, oh, we're real fancy here. But it was so good. And it was beautiful. So that's the only one I've been to in California, I think. What are some kind of tips that you would give people that are looking to either go on international trips, like specifically for wine tasting? And then what are some tips that you would do for folks that are kind of going around domestically for wine tasting?
First of all, that's the best winery to go to have an experience. So T and I were actually talking about it yesterday. I'm obsessed with Taittinger, France Taittinger. But they own Tamain de Cañeros. I've been drinking clearly over here. So it definitely was probably one of the best experiences you could probably have because it's a badass winery and they have incredible wine. Their selection is incredible. Anyways, I could talk about that all day. But I think one of the things domestically, I mean, he kind of already talked about it, is if you really want to learn and explore wine, you got to just drink and you got to kind of like those things that you've tried and that you really like. I would say, you know, start writing those down. Like, I want to go here because I know that I like this wine, all of those things. But for me personally, it's asking people that you know, and asking locals like what they love and like what they like. It's great to get a tour guide and all of that stuff, but they're going to keep you to, you know, what is the most popular versus what the locals love. And the locals always know best. Mm-hmm. And that's like my theory on anywhere that you go. I like to go places too that you can't really find stuff in stores. So asking other people, not just if you're not in the wine industry, we kind of have that like, you know, hook up where we're able to ask other wine people that we know, like, where's your favorite place to go? But if you don't have that, asking on your like Facebook or on your Instagram, because there's probably people who are part of the industry or know somebody part of the industry who will be able to give you that insight. But T has awesome tips on this too.
Okay. For me, like, I think it's important to just like do your research. Like Kay was saying, for me, like when we went to Napa for the first time, there's so many I think it's like over 400 wineries. So there's a lot to like try to like get down in a shorter period of time. So I did the same thing. I just like threw on Facebook. I was like, hey, because I know I have a whole bunch of friends that love wine and, you know, clients and all that kind of stuff that have all been to Napa before. And they wrote down, and anybody that had like multiple of the same like winery, I was like, well, 5 people said this one. So I know for a fact that that's the one I got to like mark off. So just doing your research and making sure that you kind of have a plan is the other thing. I find when you're drinking, you get a little like scatterbrained and all of that. So it's kind of tough to, like in the moment to jump. All right, where am I going to go next? Where am I going to go next? Where am I going to go next? Unless you like at least have some written down. And things to know, I know like for Napa, it's big to have reservations. A lot of places, especially the bigger places, do require a reservation. And the more like shishi bourgeois places also require a reservation to get in. And some places are nice about it if you just like stumble in, you're like, hey, I didn't know. Because we had that experience where they were like, oh, well, we've got like 15 minutes before our next actual reservation. Oh, you work in the industry? Let me pour you a whole bunch of shit. How much can you drink in 15 minutes? Let's figure this out. So some people are really nice about it and some people will kick you out. So it just depends on where you're at. But knowing, you know, doing a little research, making sure you know, is this place going to require a reservation or not? Or is it just like open and people will let you in? In these COVID times, there are some like places that won't let you bring in food anymore. A lot of wineries used to let you bring in outside food. But I found that we went like 2 weeks ago and we found that a lot of places no longer allow you to bring in outside food. You can have water sometimes, and you know, you must wear a mask. Some places do now. A lot more places are requiring reservations just so they can make sure that they have the space and proper 6 feet away from each other. So that's something to also look into. And then a lot of wineries actually have like specialty wines. So like they're like special varietals. So like this winery is known for Zinfandel, or this winery is known for their bubbly or whatever. So based off of what you know you like, also look into that. So like if you know you like rosé, what wineries are known for having rosé, and go to there.
But do you guys have a favorite wine? I think Kay, you said like the Taittinger is what?
Taittinger and rosé.
Rosé.
Like, we're meant to be like besties forever. Taittinger and rosé, especially Frog's Leap, are like my 2 go-tos. But like literally, I have a list of bubbly rosé that is like my favorite. I'm gonna have to send to you from all different places, and you can share it however you like. But I'll literally go on for hours if I talk about it. So I should just.
What about you, Tiara?
I love bubbles and I love like luscious red wines. I'm also a huge fan of bubbly rosé. So like Laurent Perrier rosé is probably a top fave of mine, but it's also like hella expensive because it is legitimately champagne. So it's money, but there's definitely some other great stuff out there at an easier price point that I enjoy. But yeah, so red blends and bubbles make me happy, and rosé all day is also
I honestly, I truly believe you can't go wrong with a rosé.
I think it's perfect. Rosé like pairs well with so many different foods. And so like, here's a like plug for anybody. If you ever are going to like a dinner party, you have no idea what wine to pick up, go with rosé because like it will pair with a lot of shit. So, or bubbles. Yeah.
Speaking of pairings, we're going to jump into a speed round of wine pairing questions. So I'm going to ask you quick fire, quick fire questions about like the best wines to pair with certain foods, or the best or unique foods that can be paired with a certain type of wine. And I'm going to alternate questions. So the first one will go to Tiara, and then the next one will go to Kaiy, and then we'll bounce back and forth. All right, you guys ready?
I'm ready.
No wrong answers. All right, so first question, which we kind of talked about already, but what are the best types of wine that can be paired with barbecue?
Rosé. Hands down, it's rosé.
What do you think it pairs better with, like a sweeter barbecue or spicy, or all types?
Doesn't matter, because like the ease of rosé and how nice it is on the palate, it just goes really well with like if you have a spicier barbecue, like you can do a sweeter rosé and that'll balance each other out. If you have like a sweeter barbecue sauce, then you can do like Provence style drier rosé, and that'll help balance it out. But at the end of the day, rosé, barbecue, done. And typically you barbecue in the summertime when it's hot, so rosé is also the perfect drink to enjoy while you're standing in the sun.
Nice. All right, over to Kaiy. You are going out for sushi. What type of wine would you pair with that?
Champagne. If you're going out for sushi anyways, it's probably a fancy dinner. So you need champagne to celebrate getting away from your kids. I don't know if you don't have kids. So it's a little different, but champagne pairs incredible with sushi. Any bubbles you can get sushi. I wouldn't even recommend anything else because you should just be drinking bubbles. You can't have carbonation. You can have like a Pinot Grigio or a Sauvignon Blanc or even a Chardonnay. But to be completely honest, you should be drinking bubbles.
What is the best or a unique food to pair with white wine that people may not consider?
I think Mexican and like Moscato or like Muscat is like something that people might not consider. I think, a lot of times when you think of like spicy and like heated foods, you might want to be like, oh, well, a spicy food with a spicy wine, like a Tempranillo or something like that, or something that's traditionally, south of the border style wine. But like for me, I really love to create balance when I do my pairings. So Mexicans got spice, so balancing out with something sweet, which like a Moscato, a Muscat, a Riesling, Gewürztraminer, all white wines with a touch of residual sugar, that will go really well.
That sounds delicious too. Now I want Mexican food. Like, I just want wine and food. Like, it's a dangerous combination to talk about wine and food for so long. Next question, it's similar. So so oftentimes when people think of red wine, they think of pairing it with like a steak or something like that. So what's kind of a unique pairing with red wine?
Unique pairing with red wine. I love a red blend and pizza. Like if you want to keep it like super simple and it doesn't have to be like fancy, like you order your Domino's and get a red blend and like rock out in front of Netflix. It's delicious.
That also sounds delicious. Maybe I'm just hungry.
Fair enough.
I'm finding out right now. Well, thank you for playing. Thank you both for playing this round of quick fire questions about wine, pairings. Definitely learning a lot about wine, which is always nice because I do like to drink it, but I don't ever feel like I know what exactly I'm doing with it. So this is very helpful. And I'm sure the listeners are also getting a lot of good tips from both you and Kaiy. Kind of wrap it up, I guess. I really want to thank both you and Kaiy for being on the podcast. So where can listeners find information on Wine Diva, Tiara, and the Som Mom?
So if you go to Instagram, you can follow Wine Diva Tiara, and then you can also follow the Som Mom. And then also we each have our own groups on Facebook, which host all of our events. So all of the events that we do every single month, they're on our Facebook page set up as events. And then you can go through, there's registration on there. You can go through register and we will reach out to you to give you all of the details.
And what are some upcoming events that you have going on, if you guys know that far?
So we're looking into, all subject to change at this point, but October 10th, the day after my birthday, fun fact, Libra Live.
Hey, I'm October 16th, so Libras for life.
Libras for life, and my boyfriend's a Libra. He's October 21st. Love it. Anyways, October 10th, we are planning a rosé and holiday tasting. You're welcome. And as of recording this right now, it's International Rosé Day, so I did pour a glass of rosé.
Yay! Oh my gosh.
I love it.
Okay, so rosé tasting in October, birthday month. Okay, wow. I like where this is going.
Yes. And then keeping with like the fall and the awesomeness that is October 25th, we're looking at doing a pumpkin ravioli class, and we'll probably be pairing that with the new wine releases that we'll be seeing in the month of October.
That sounds equally as amazing. So the best way for people to find you is to hit up your Instagrams, which I will include in the episode description, as well as your Facebooks. So I'll include links to both of those down in the descriptions for the listeners. So if you're interested in wine, learning more about wine, as well as pairings, I know you guys do a lot of classes and share a lot of information related to food as well. So if you are interested in learning more about that, definitely follow them on social media. And I would highly recommend 10 for 10, recommend the Would Do Again, the virtual wine tasting. It was super fun. And I learned a ton, not only about the wine, but also about food. We were talking, again, super jealous of all the food that was going on, but it was so helpful and educational. And it was just like a really fun, chill group of people to hang out and drink wine with. So again, I really want to thank both of you for being on the podcast. And to the listeners, as always, get out there, try something new, and have some fucking fun. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the Fun with Friends podcast on social media. We are on Instagram at Fun with Friends Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter at FunFriendsPod1. You can also reach me by email at funfriendspodcast@gmail.com. And you can go to my website, cootscreations.com, for some fun little extras from the podcast. So definitely head over there and check it out. And as always, remember to get out there, try something new, and have some fun. Goodbye.